And we're back with episode 10 from Anthony stepping into Giuseppe's apartment, the parenting struggles of Miranda's parenting identity changing, Lisa trying to keep it together, Charlotte finally letting it all go. It was all a roller coaster of an episode. And of course, we see Carrie and Duncan play out. And my favorite personal part, Aiden is no longer here. The lessons go deep in this episode, so make sure that you stick around for it all and hit subscribe so that you don't miss the additional videos throughout the week. Grab your tea because I've got plenty of therapist takeaways to share. And as always, we will start from the lightest to the deepest, ending with my most profound thoughts about Carrie towards the end, and beginning with the most amusing, which is always Anthony. If I can think far back to my dating days, there's usually one person whose apartment becomes the spot, right? Maybe it's bigger, cleaner, closer to home, has better snacks, whatever it is, it becomes the default, which is totally normal. But Anthony never visiting Giuseppe's apartment, I don't think that's so normal. When you see someone's space, how they live, what they keep, their vibe, it just tells you a lot about who they are. And that kind of transparency is really part of building trust in a relationship. Whether it be due to hormones or to lifestyle, some people just don't experience sexual attraction or don't desire sexual relationships. And that is just as valid as any other orientation. Clearly, though, Giuseppe's neighbor, not one of those people. But in the end, hearing the neighbor, and seeing the puppets, I have no words. But the takeaway here is that when you're building a relationship, transparency does matter. And visiting each other's spaces isn't about convenience only, it's really about getting to know the person you're with. And seeing how someone lives does tell you a lot about their routines, their comfort zones, and even how they handle intimacy. And lastly, if you happen to be someone's muse, whether you know it or not, or even if you're just someone's friends, boundaries are important to really be aware of and know when they're being crossed and really trust your gut. I'm glad Giuseppe saw what he saw and took Anthony up on that offer to move in with him fast. Now, question for you. Would you ever date someone seriously without ever visiting their apartment or place of living? And have you ever been surprised by what you learned about someone after finally seeing where they live? Because see, even Seema is over at Adam's apartment. So how could Anthony never have seen Giuseppe's? Now, in the comments in the past few weeks, some of you had thoughts about how Adam makes a living and is it realistic for him to attract Seema's attention. Well, we got a clue this episode. His paychecks clearly aren't going to his rent because $900 a month for an apartment that big with those floor to ceiling windows in New York City is gold. My cousin once rented a very cute but very small apartment and paid more in rent than I did for my New Jersey monthly mortgage. So back to Seema, from visiting Adam's apartment, she learns all types of things from his hippie mom, the holistic vibe, and the heartbreaking fact that his mom died of breast cancer when he was just 20 years old. But when we cut to dinner with Carrie, where Seema says, mommy issues is going to end in this relationship, mommy issues, Seema. The man had a close, loving relationship with his mom. Why does that turn to mommy issues? The reason why she turned to saying it's mommy issues is because, again, here we see her defense mechanism showing up. Just like I said 2 weeks ago, she is looking for an exit plan. And not because she doesn't like Adam, but because she's scared of where this can go. It is classic self-sabotage. She literally knocks the plant out of the window, unknowingly killing his mother, then stops returning his calls and texts. And it's like she's either consciously or subconsciously pushing him away before things get too real. But Adam, I really appreciate him being calm, being grounded, and he takes that broken plant, brings it into her office, and not to guilt her, but to blend his world into hers a little bit more. And when Seema says that she doesn't want to kill his mom again because she's not good with plans, he replies, well, that's what you have me for. And that's not just having patience with somebody, that's also giving them a whole lot of grace. So the takeaway here for Seema is that self-sabotage often hides under the radar. It doesn't always look like someone storming out of a room or declaring, I can't do this. No, most of the time, it's very, very subtle. It's not calling someone back. It's ghosting a little when things feel too good. It's nitpicking flaws that aren't really there just to create this emotional distance for it to not work out. And what I love here again is that Adam shows us that there is another way. He's showing her that love doesn't have to be perfect in order for it to be safe. And this is something that so many of us in relationships, whether it be romantic, platonic, friendships, even work dynamics, we subconsciously sometimes do this to ourselves because leaning in may feel like we're losing control. But true connection only grows when we notice fear, acknowledge the old stories that we tell ourselves, and when we still take the risk of letting someone in or letting someone close. Sometimes healing doesn't mean tearing down all of our walls at once, but it does mean letting a little light in, kind of like one brick at a time, until we finally believe that we're safe enough to stop running. Oh, and P.S. Yay for Seema for hiring her driving back. So think about it. Have you ever caught yourself self-sabotaging a relationship like Seema did, pulling away or finding excuses to leave, even when things are going well? And where things did not go well is with Miranda. And we saw that Steve is back, at least for the episode. Now, I know a lot of you have feelings about Steve. Many of you can't forget how he treated Miranda in the past, but there's still something about him. Not Steve per se, but really the actor. He has this kind of aw shucks type of vibe that still feels really sweet, even when we're side eyeing his choices. And in this episode, sweetness, though, was nowhere to be found because Steve went off on Brady like a bunch of times. And what started as a seemingly warm family reunion took a sharp left turn when Brady dropped the bombshell that he got someone pregnant. Now, listen, shock and anger are completely normal parenting reactions. But the one line Steve says, you having a baby with someone who doesn't even want to be with you, that, my friends, was loaded because it wasn't about Brady. Steve was definitely projecting his own pain, likely revisiting his history with Miranda, and you could feel it through the screen. Then Brady not sticking around to argue when he got up, walked out, and said, I'm getting away from the verbally abusive and physically threatening parents. Let's be real. That was spot on with this generation. Meanwhile, Miranda doesn't send a text or a voice note like many of us would to our friends. Nope, she takes it completely old school, three-way calling her friends, middle school style. And as much as it was comforting to see the girls rally for her, you could tell that no one had any idea of what to do or what to say to this news. And for weeks now, I've been saying that Miranda hasn't felt like the Miranda we've known for 20 years. But this episode, Miranda peeked through a little bit when she went undercover tracking Brady's baby mama. Cringy, absolutely. Invasive, definitely. But also, I kind of get it because when your kid's life changes in such a major way, as a mom, your identity may shift too. Parents don't stay the same people once they become grandparents. Trust me, my parents are completely different with my kids than they were with me when I was a kid. They're softer, slower to anger, more gentle overall. And I think that's part of why Miranda was desperate to understand this new chapter of Brady's life. And the baby mama, I mean, I'm not even gonna go there with the farting because I feel that if you're a mom, we may have all been there during pregnancy, no judgment whatsoever. But that moment when Miranda asked, little boy or little girl, and she got hit with the so binary, listen, I respect everyone's right to identify however they choose. Fully, wholeheartedly, I have tons of clients that I work with on these topics. But babies are born biologically male or female until they're old enough to self identify. And if I'm missing something here, please let me know respectfully in the comments. So, moving on, finally, the quietest and most powerful moments of all, at least through my mom eyes, is when Miranda got home and just looked at Brady when he was sleeping. In that glance, he wasn't a soon to be dad, most definitely not. He wasn't even a young adult making mistakes. He was like looking at her little boy. And that's a mother's love. It doesn't matter how old they get or what life stage they're in, we still see our kids as our babies. So, the takeaway here is that parenting doesn't get easier, it just evolves. When our kids are little, the challenges are tangible, right? Sleepless nights, tantrums, scraped knees. But as they grow, those challenges don't go away. They just morph into something different, and we find ourselves guiding young adults through heartbreak, identity, and decisions that can alter their lives forever. And here's the thing, just because they're grown doesn't always mean that we stop worrying or stop wanting to protect them. It just means that we have less control over the outcome. And that's a hard pill for any parent to swallow. And identity shifts for parents are a real thing that are very, very oftentimes overlooked. Because when Brady said that he was having a baby, it didn't just change his life, it started shifting Miranda's identity. One minute she's here navigating midlife and rediscovering herself. And then the next minute, she's facing grandmotherhood. And that's a seismic shift that we don't talk often enough about. So the truth is that when your child steps into a new role, so do you. And it's not always graceful and it's not always straightforward. The true love in parenting is about loosening this grip that we sometimes keep so tight without losing connection. And Miranda's urge to track down Brady's partner to understand every detail wasn't just her being nosy or her being Miranda, it was fear wrapped in love. Because we often want to protect, guide, and sometimes control what's happening with our kids because letting go feels like we're abandoning them. But part of parenting older kids specifically is recognizing that our comfort can't come at the cost of their autonomy. Sometimes real love is stepping back while staying rooted in the support, even when every instinct screams to just hold on. So, for my parent friends out there, or as I like to say, my amiga moms, would you step in to try to manage your adult child's big life choices like Miranda did? Or would you just let them figure it out on their own? And moving on to our next mom with a whole different set of issues, we're going to go on to Lisa. And I'll tell you, I could have easily stepped into Lisa's shoes this week, minus the quality time with the hamster, because yes, I have a therapy dog, but rodents are not my thing. But besides that, everything else I felt to my core. And if you're a mom of a school age kid, I'm betting that you probably did too. Because when Lisa said, I feel terrible, I'm never here, I'm always tired, all I do is think about work, that could have been my line. Because honestly, when we're spinning so many plates, or when we're spinning like that hamster on a wheel between work and managing the house, thinking about dinner, supporting our partners, remembering their goals, navigating our kids' friendship drama, sports schedules, Uber driving, homework, and let's not forget then perfectly coordinating everybody's outfit because you know that the elevator scene didn't just happen by itself. When do us moms come up for air? And then her daughter loses the hamster. I mean, the yelling, the frustration. I've been there more times than I'd like to say. So, the takeaway here is that as a licensed therapist, specifically who specializes in working with kids, and as a passionate mom coach, I'm here to tell you that we all yell unless you give the silent treatment. But 9 times out of 10, we all lose our ish at some point. And as Herbert told Lisa, so you're not super mom for the day. We are all human. I've worked with so many moms who are riddled with mom guilt after something like this happens in their home. And yeah, it's hard, but that's why I like to keep it real. And I'm here to tell you that it's absolutely normal. What matters isn't the outburst itself, really, it's what happens after. And in the scene, even though Lisa said, why did you do something so stupid? I'm furious at you. Notice that she didn't attack her daughter's character. And that's an important distinction because, yes, she used the word stupid, but she didn't say, you are so blank. What was missing, though, and what I always guide moms to do, is the repair, the apologizing for our actions, the explaining what was overwhelming to us, and then circling back to teach the lesson calmly. That is how we strengthen connection with our kids instead of ending it. Now, back to the tea for a moment. When the grandma says, this is how you speak to your children, I mean, I feel so bad for Lisa. But then we see her true colors when she tells Herbert, how could you ever enter a race where there was a chance that you could lose? Like I said before, when it comes to grandchildren, grandparents are just different kinds of people. So the takeaway here is that there's a much deeper level to what we're seeing in these scenes. Moms don't just carry their own invisible load of to do lists and schedules. We often absorb everyone else's emotions too. Kids, partners, extended family. We're holding on to their disappointment, their anxieties, their grief, all while running on fumes ourselves. And this is why I created Amiga Mom's private coaching, because so many of us live like Lisa, burnt out, overbooked, constantly holding it all together for everyone else. And in this coaching space, it really gives you a safe space to lay it all down, to really dump it without judgment, to breathe and to rebuild using practical tools to manage the mental load. It's about learning to share the weight, to find calm again, and remembering who you are outside of the role of being a mom. Know that, if, especially if you're a mom, you deserve this space and you deserve to feel human again. So, regardless of where you are in the world listening to this video, if Lisa's story felt like looking in a mirror, I'd love to help you find that breathing room again. You can always book a 60-minute discovery call with me. We'll walk through what's weighing you down and explore how coaching can give you the tools and support to lighten the load and begin to feel like you again. So tell me in the comments, which part of Lisa's storyline hit closest to home this week? Was it the invisible load? Was it the mom guilt? Or was it the feeling like you're carrying everyone else's emotions all at once? And another classic mom life moment was from Charlotte. Here she is juggling this home renovation. Harry's glued to the game. A tap rehearsal's happening right outside her door. Lisa's son talking back to her in her own home. Couldn't be me, folks. And in the middle of it all, she is trying to redeem her energy cleanse certificate, grasping for a little slice of calm that seems to never quite happen. And for 2 weeks or so, we've been saying, who is there for Charlotte? She's always there for everyone else. She's always everyone else's cheerleader, but who is helping her? And at first, Charlotte's storyline feels really light. But when we get to that moment in the end, when we see her finally letting it go, and she even said she's been holding the weight of Harry's cancer and the surgery and all the things that she has no one to share it with, that right there is so real. So many of us live in this exact story, being everything to everyone while quietly pushing our own emotional needs further and further to the bottom of the list. We cheer everyone else on, we keep the house running, we hold space for everyone's feelings again. But when it comes to our own feelings, we just tell ourselves, well, we have to keep going because when are we going to take this break? But the truth is, my friends, that if we don't have this space to unload, we eventually break down, which is not weakness, it's just being human. And that's why it's so important to have support, to have a friend, a partner, a mom coach, someone who can hold that emotional weight for you. Because if we can't truly take care of ourselves, then how are we going to take care of our families running on empty? So tell me, do you ever feel like you're carrying everyone else's emotions while having no space to share your own emotions with? And if so, how do you find support? Or are you still searching for it? And again, if you're still searching for it, private mom coaching is here for you. Just visit the show notes and set up a call. Okay, so out of motherhood, and now let's go all into Carrie. Carrie's book said it best. The woman returned to herself. And that's exactly what we saw this week. First of all, she looked amazing, strutting through the entire episode like someone who finally remembers who she is. And there's something about pain turning into productivity. We've all seen it, and I'm sure many of us have experienced it, maybe through a breakup, maybe through losing a job, whether it's diving into work or hitting the gym, reinventing ourselves. Heartbreak sometimes lights a fire that we didn't often know we had. And it makes you think, do we stop ourselves from achieving our max potential when we're tied down with all these other responsibilities? Or do we just experience another form of happiness? I don't know. Going back to the book that she's writing, she states, having the man dying of the untreated wound from the previous battle. I mean, can it get any more literal? Aiden couldn't let go of his past jealousy wound, so he died, figuratively speaking. He is gone. And Duncan with the burn, I wonder would I still be reading this if he were here? Ooh, but that also shows that he may be glad that Aiden is gone. And speaking of Duncan, it's wild to see him not only in Carrie's house, but upstairs in her room. He's really getting quite comfortable. And if we notice, so has she, because her huge house, I never thought we'd see it, but her huge house is finally starting to look like a home. And their banter going back and forth was kind of cute, working at the table, which, if you notice, is not the table that Eden gave her. And then we see the Scotch scene, how Duncan is all up in her house's cabinets, and then him getting playful with her shoes. I mean, for the first time, it's like we see Duncan more than just the grumpy old neighbor downstairs. And when he tells her, well done, there was definitely a smile moment that went pretty deep. But it all kind of shifted when he invited her to the publishing party. It seems like up until then, they kept it strictly professional, with the exception of Charlotte's party and sharing that cup. I still haven't forgotten about that. But at this point, it seemed like he started to get more curious about who Carrie was outside of her house. And when we see Carrie speaking to Seema, she's so vulnerable when she says, I've never experienced a man seeing me as smart first. Sexy, yes. Cute, yes. And sure, Seema cuts her off and calls her out on the humble or lack thereof. And I know that some of you have mentioned in the first few episodes that Carrie is far from humble. Maybe she has too much confidence. But in this moment, there's a special vulnerability that we don't often see from her. And I wonder if anyone else had ever acknowledged her to this degree, her being smart and a good writer. Because back in the Sex and the City days, Berger was jealous of her, right? Because he was also a writer. And then Big kind of played her down a bit. And the one time that he was interested in her books was when she traveled to see him by train to California with Samantha. And sure, he was reading her books, but he made it about himself. He didn't make it about her being an amazing author. And Carrie says, Duncan sees my meanness. All parts of her, she means. And there's something to be said about that. When someone truly sees who you are past your external representative, that you show the world. Then the conversation that Carrie had with Charlotte was really interesting. But the biggest thing that I got out of that was Carrie's own self awareness. She noticed how defensive she became with Miranda a couple episodes ago when she was insinuating that there was a connection between her and Duncan. And she was doing it even with Charlotte, too, to a much lesser intensity, of course. But if we notice, it wasn't because she was being a bad friend, albeit the delivery could have been much better. But the feelings came from her internal, like, tug of war that she was experiencing, of being seen as a smart writer and as having this connection with somebody. And both of these not having anything to do of sex or of being in relationships. And Charlotte, again, she's forever the cheerleader friend. This time, she is much more genuine about it when she told her, you know how true you were to him, meaning Aiden, but he's gone and you're here, and that dress deserves to be seen. That is an amazing friend. She doesn't criticize, she doesn't condescend her, but instead she gives her permission to live. Unapologetically so, not caring what will people say. So Carrie changes the outfit. She sews up for herself. She magically matches with Duncan when everyone else in the scene is wearing all black. She wears the Cinderella looking shoes that Duncan held earlier on in the episode. And the cinematography behind this all was also so, so beautiful. Did you pick up on all these things? I really enjoy watching all of it. So then we float past a good relationship with Duncan's ex-wife, the fact that he missed his deadline because of helping her slash wanting to spend more time with her, and that she's wonderful, that he's a mess, all while leading up to the Hollywood fairy tale moment when she runs down the stairs and it's a wrap from there. And then after their thing, as they talk about the book, Carrie says that maybe her main character will die of loneliness. And what we hear there is her fear. But Duncan again really sees Carrie, not just for the fashionista, the airheady, the flirty type of Carrie that we've always known her to be, but he sees her as the smart, complex, full version of herself. He suggests that the character will live on. He says that she's a unique character and it would be a shame to end her. And that, my friends, is why we're all here right now. Because even in the middle of sometimes some questionable storylines, it would be a shame to end Carrie. And I know that this is why some of you continue to hate watch out there. So, moving on to the takeaways, I feel as though this was a really, really special episode. Carrie's journey this season isn't about Duncan. It's not even about Aiden. It's about rediscovering herself. For years, Carrie's storylines have revolved around men, around big, Aiden, fleeting flings, and second chances. And let's be real, it's a double standard because if she were a man, like the Playboy status that Big always gave, she could play the field without anyone batting an eye. But because she's a woman, there's always a whole lot to say, right? And it seems as though she needed to go through this experience with Eden to really appreciate herself again and not appreciating just the superficial side of her about the fashion and about the shoes, but the side of her that she shows where she can be both sexy and smart. And sure, she has good looking Duncan with his luscious locks and his smoking pipe. But despite that, she was still able to find herself. And not to be overlooked, by the way, Duncan says, I may have missed a deadline, but you've given me a whole new lifeline. See how he acknowledges that what they had was special, their work, their relationship, ending with this big exclamation point at the end of it all, right before he has to go back to England? It's mature to be able to have a moment, to appreciate it, to revel in it, but then to continue life, as opposed to Eden, who wanted to almost stay stuck in a time that was long gone in both of their histories. And here's the truth, friends. Growth doesn't just stop at 30, 40, or even 60. You can still surprise yourself, regardless of how old you are. You can still try something new. You can still rediscover parts of you that were buried under years of experiences or under years of others' expectations of you. So, a big reflection for you is, when was the last time that you tried something new? A new gym class, a new project, a hobby of sorts, something that reminded you of your own strengths and who you perhaps once were or who you always wanted to be. How many times do we not stop ourselves or do we not stop things happening in life because of the fear of what will other people say? Yeah, sometimes taking a leap of faith feels risky. And yes, it can be intimidating. But on the other side, you might just find you. And what a magical thing it is that even at 60 plus, Carrie can still discover new things about herself. You can still discover new things about yourself. And I hope that we all get to see that day and experience that feeling and far beyond that. And is it better than sex, as the title alludes to? Well, that's subjective. But if we're lucky, when we're older and grayer, we can look back and know that the legacy we leave behind, the us that we fully became or stepped into, was far better than any fleeting moment of passion. This entire episode reminds us that love, parenting, or even self discovery can be messy, but it can also be magical. And whether you're navigating breakups, juggling motherhood, or rediscovering who you are at any age, remember that your story isn't over yet. But my friends, there's something that is over. I record these episodes a day after the episode comes out. Like 4 minutes right before I hit record, I opened up Instagram and I saw the post that stated, and just like that is coming to an end. Michael Patrick King posted, and just like that, the ongoing storytelling of the Sex and the City universe is coming to an end. While I was writing the last episode of And Just Like That Season 3, it became clear to me that this might be a wonderful place to stop. Along with Sarah Jessica Parker, Casey Bloys, and Sarah Aubrey, we decided to end the popular series this year with a two-part finale and extend the original series order from 10 episodes to 12. SJP and I held off announcing the news until now because we didn't want the word of final to overshadow the fun of watching this season. It's with great gratitude we thank all of our viewers who let these characters into their homes and into their hearts over these many years. And I'll tell you, I felt some type of way when I saw that post. And I'm so glad that they didn't share that it was the final point of it all. Because then we would have been wondering, well, how are they going to wrap this up instead of really being present in the characters' lives? And I hope that we can all apply that to our lives. We don't know when the final day for us is going to come, but what we can do is be present in our lives and really live fully and appreciate all facets of ourselves so that we can live the best life that we could ever live before our chapters come to an end too. Let me know in the comments the answers to the questions that I've asked, and I'll see you throughout the week with different shorts. And then I'll see you next Friday for part one of the finale of all finales of all things Sex and the City and just like that. Thanks for tuning in.